All right, we are back. What's up, everybody?
What's
We're back
up?
for
What's
another
up? What's
episode of
up?
We Are the Ones podcast. Really excited to be back for another episode.
Another episode. We are the ones.
Yeah, we have some extraordinary conversations with some extraordinary people that's doing some extraordinary. I cannot talk today. God damn. I'm trying to be all. I'm trying to sound all professional.
Get to you.
Extraordinary. There it is.
Okay.
I was trying to sound out
Extraordinary.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
I was trying to sound
extraordinary.
it out, but
Okay.
no, we have some extraordinary conversations with extraordinary people who are just doing extraordinary things, and today is no different.
No different at
no
all.
different. We got a good friend, my brother, but we're gonna get into the introduction shortly. But Avi, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I am so glad to be done with the E4All Business Accelerator
Come on.
program.
Congratulations
I
on
did my
that.
final pitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, big shout out to you
Yes.
on that. You did an amazing job on your pitch. I got a
Thank
chance
you. Thank
to check
you.
it out, and I'm just like uber proud,
Thank
uber
you.
proud of you.
Thank you.
That's super dope.
So after that, listen. I'm smooth sailing right now. After having that done, yeah. How's your week?
The week is going amazing.
Oh, it's only Monday. So
yeah.
last week, right? We're talking about last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every day is amazing. My little man just turned 6 months
I know.
yesterday. So
School.
yeah, he's just getting bigger by the day. That's my little guy, man. So just watching him grow, it's just been amazing. But just kind of getting into the rhythm of just work and everything else we got going on. Got businesses, got contracts out here up the wazoo. So.
Jamil rolling.
Talk
man.
that talk. I was saying, talk that talk. Talk that talk.
Listen,
You know what I mean? You know, you got a little thing going on.
Yeah, sure. A couple contracts. You know what I'm saying?
What I say?
Couple here.
I've been
couple
working my
there.
ass off for these, but I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for every opportunity that comes my way. I just got awarded the from Buffalo Black Achievers.
Yes, you
Congratulations.
did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was the Community Service Award. So it was unexpected. But I'm grateful nonetheless that my community, and especially an organization like the Buffalo Black Achievers, people that I've been looking at with so much respect and reverence for so long. They do so much here in our community through scholarships and just recognizing people that look like us. You know what I mean? So, and the fact that they saw enough to recognize me, for the work that I was doing, it's just been incredible. And, just obviously just coming off of the Forbes recognition as well,
Right.
So things have just been, things have been rolling.
And I love it because it's all about community too.
Yeah.
Like you're really being recognized for the work that you do right here in your city. And I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful.
Which is great, especially like, for example, with the Forbes thing, they recognize me for things that I'm doing here in Buffalo. I'm like, yo, how did I even get on y'all radar?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but the fact that I am, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just feels good.
Yeah.
I can't even hold you. Like, it feels good to be recognized. I'm like, I'm in a great season of my life right now. I'm in a really good season. At the beginning of, I think it was last year, I said that that year was going to be the year of abundance, right? And ever since then,
Yeah.
I've been living life abundantly.
You really have.
Yeah,
I know.
So-
You really did speak it. You spoke it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's power in that. It's
Exactly.
power in
Manifestation.
speaking things, into existence, and that you said a manifestation. So, so I'm just excited. But I'm even more excited because today I got my brother on here, man. I got my brother. Like me and my guy, we go back for about 10 years, almost 10 years
about
now.
10 years now.
Yeah. So, quick story: we actually got a chance to meet and connect with each other through. We were both founding members of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals.
Yep.
Okay.
So he was on, like, I think right before I was.
Yep.
I came on board. Shout out to our founder president Stephanie. And she was like, "Do you want to be on our board?" So I came on, and Reggie and I we were co-chairs together for the communications.
Yeah.
And he just always been just like one of those down to earth dudes, man. Like, this has been my man 50 grand ever since. Like, we never had an issue.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? It's always been love with us, man. And then to see what he's been able to do, in transitioning himself from career to entrepreneurship and what we're going to talk a little bit about today with his business in Canna House. It's been nothing short of amazing. So, and of course, I mean, we're going to talk about this, but my man, he out here breaking barriers. You know what I'm saying? Like, he out here breaking barriers for real. You know, Business First came hollering at my man. Got the cover story. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that because but
wipe him down.
Without further ado, I would like to introduce my brother, Reggie Keith, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Man. Thank y'all for having me, man. I'm really excited about this. Shout out to y'all for creating more spaces for our voices, man.
Absolutely,
we need it.
Thank
you. I appreciate y'all. Y'all been doing y'all thing in the community, paying attention. You know what I'm saying? I'm always watching. I'm always watching. This is my brother. You know what I mean? And I've seen you, and it's crazy because Avi, he had asked me, "Did I know you?" And I'm like, I don't think so. But when I saw you, I was like, oh, I do know who that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just that 1 degree of separation that is Buffalo.
I'm telling you. And that's the thing
what I
too,
mean?
because when he was like, I've known him for 5 years, I said, the thing about it is that I hear Reggie's name a lot and I never hear anything negative. Anytime anyone ever spoke about you, Reggie, it's always just highly recommended.
That's dope.
To know you. So just know you got a lot of support out here.
This is the definition of good energy right here. You know what I mean? Like it's just, every time you're around this dude, you can't help but to just to feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you get around this guy, and I'm telling you, your day is just instantly better just because of the energy that he brings to the space.
That's
you
love,
know,
y'all.
Yeah.
That's love. Keep them coming. Come on. Keep them coming.
What else you like about me?
Tell me more.
No, I like this. So Reggie, what I love about this podcast is that we're going to dive into your mindset.
Yeah.
Because I feel like our people and here in Buffalo as well, you have to start with your mindset before you can start to make or see a change in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get down to it. For those who may not know you or just heard of you,
Sure.
Born and raised in Buffalo.
Born and raised in Buffalo, East Side, North Parade, right across the street from the Science Museum. I went to Buffalo Public Schools. You know what I'm saying? I am Buffalo. That's a fact.
Okay. What high school?
Buffalo Performing Arts Academy. Shout out. That sounds shaky.
Yeah,
that sounds like some haters about
Sarah voice cracking.
something negative about the
Bougie over here. Queen Bougie over here, bro.
I don't even understand where that energy is coming from.
Queen Bougie over here.
You are a tech guy. You're one of those.
Yeah, one of those. One of those.
Yeah.
No, I actually love it because my mother went to performing arts. I have much respect for performing arts. So what did you go there for?
Communications. Yeah.
Oh, I thought, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, communication arts, right? And so growing up, I loved examples of greatness that like resonated with like culture. Like, man, that looks authentic. And I fell in love with Stuart Scott. If you guys aren't familiar with Stuart Scott, rest in peace to my guy from Sports Center, from ESPN, really worked himself up. And I just watched him be booyah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? On TV, you can talk like that? Like, I want that job. You know what I'm saying? Everybody black I see on TV is stuffy and then they're in their suits and they're like, and that's the news. Back to you, Johnny. And I'm like, nah, he don't go like that. And so that really resonated with me. Like, I really love the impact he had on just a young black kid that wanted to be something and didn't know what it was. And then my skills kind of led me to always being able to communicate. I was was good at taking high level information and understanding it. And so for that, it allowed me to kind of like say a lot of points that like some of my friends had, or maybe my siblings might have been wanting to talk to. I was always the one to go talk to my parents, like, right? You know what I mean? Reg, go ask, right? Because I can say it in a way that everybody understood, like, okay, there was some understanding of and so that kind of like spirit of just being able to be authentically yourself in whatever profession you choose really was like, that's what drove me to communications. And so, I went to performing arts for communication arts.
Okay. So when you say that, you were the one that they would say, go say something to mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So you grew up in a 2-parent home?
Grew up in a 2-parent home. Older brother lived in the house. I have an older sister as well. I had an older brother that passed away as well. Shout out Sean Brooks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But grew up in I called it like the R-rated Cosby home. Shout out to my dad. Rest in peace to my dad. I lost my dad this year, so it was thank you, man. Thank you so much. So just, life be lifing. You know what I mean? And so, but from that, so many positive memories. And I just think about my dad, and my dad was just like this. You know, I mean, saying it now sounds kind of weird, but he was like this R-rated Bill Cosby, but Bill Cosby is kind of R-rated. So, sorry, but he was like an R-rated...
He's probably the culture version of Bill Cosby.
He was like Heathcliff, though, R-rated, right? Like a doctor, not like Bill Cosby. So, but the Huxtables was like a solid representation of what I think my parents aspired to kind of set the tone for their children, right? That environment, like you could do whatever you want, right? We did our best to try to afford you the opportunities to go do some of this stuff. It's about you taking advantage of it. And that just wasn't a theme in our community. A lot of my friends weren't in that position where it was like, well, I'm choosing not to go to camp. Like, bro, but you get to go to camp. We're going to pay for your camp. Why you ain't going to camp? Right? And to me, I just want to hang with my friends because y'all ain't going to camp, but they don't have the means to go. Nobody's giving them the opportunity. And so that dynamic was an interesting thing growing up. But yeah, man, really healthy household. Do
you feel like that you had an advantage because you had a two-parent household? Because, I mean, obviously, you grew up in the hood, right? And seeing a lot of people around you, circumstances weren't the same. So do you think that you were... had more of an advantage had both of your parents in the household?
I guess as a mature person now, I could say yes, but then I didn't know that. I didn't know the difference. So I didn't know it was like, oh, I didn't have this and now I have this. And so I could see the advantage. Like this was my normal. So I only knew two parents. But as I started to mature and see like the things that I was able to, the groundedness I had, not necessarily in like the tangible things, but like some of my understanding about family, about camaraderie, about like togetherness. I felt like I definitely had a head start because some people just didn't learn that primarily where they were at, which is home, right? And so if you're not learning that with your primary residence, then, you know, you kind of are adopting that as you're going out and meeting other people like that. And that was stuff that I was raised in kind of like, you know, I come from a church background, so you know, like a righteous thought process of like, you know, just being good to people, treat people how you want to be treated. And so that definitely gave me an advantage. And even to this day, I think it allows me to really be good with how I deal with people.
So would you say that growing up, you were like the voice of reason or even the dad of your friends?
Oh, man. So I grew up, my crew, like my youngest crew, we were kind of like, I was kind of the youngest one. Like I like hanging with older folks. They could expose me to stuff. Like I always hang with the older crew. And so I don't know if I would be like the dad in that scenario, but I will say this, like quickly, my friends, I would say that my first skill I learned was manipulation. Like it wasn't great, right? But that's, as I was paying attention to the people that got the things they want, I was like, oh, I could do that. Like, you just got to...
You ever use that?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think early in my, like, just being, you know, teenager, right? When I'm starting to make decisions for myself, I think I used it to, like, you know, get the car, right? I did it to, like, stay certain places, you know, get free snacks, right? It was definitely, like, super superficial. It was, like, really silly. But even then, I started to understand how, like, I felt weird. I didn't feel good about manipulating somebody into a result. And so I never wanted to like trick anybody into giving me what they wanted. And so that allowed me to, like, you know, how can I do this and be me? You know, how can I just tell the truth? I want some free snacks. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that, so having that check, that's what I call it, that check within your spirit, do you think that come from your church background or more so from the culture and the household that you grew up in?
Yeah, I think both. Definitely, I mean, you know, spirituality was like so big growing up that it definitely shaped my perspective, how I went about things. But my parents were so big on accountability, right? It was just like, all right, well, what was your part? You know what I mean? You don't come in here telling me about what he did and what they did. Like, all right, you was there. You ain't stop him. You ain't do nothing. Did you go tell? Why? You know, so, you know, what role did you play? And that always led me to being like, all right, well, you know, I'm sure there's something I could have changed in the situation. I could blame somebody. So, yeah, that was really what kind of, like, I would say birthed that in me. Yeah, for sure. So
it's interesting because you know how, so there's always ways that that the good can be seen as bad. And what I mean by that is that even though your parents was telling you, you need to be held accountable for your actions, that also in turn have some situations feel as if taking on fault, like, dang, now what happened is my fault. Like, did that actually have like a twist or a negative to it as well?
It's a good question. I'd say yes. Yeah, that's fair. You know, I think even as an adult, I'm kind of like hard on myself, right? My fiance would tell you, like, even with all these achievements and like pushing and like support that I get in the community, which I so appreciative of. I'm always like, that's like a B grade, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I like would say I'm like, I internalize everything to be like on me or my fault, but I am super critical when I know it's my responsibility. Like when that's my response, I don't back out of like, that kind of wasn't my fault. Like if he would have just called me yesterday, I would have got that. Like, no, like, bro, you could have called a week before and you could have been clear on what you needed. And so I think more of that, like I'm ultra critical of myself more than I am of like, I absorb the blame.
So when you say you're critical in that way, how did you speak to yourself growing up? Because were you very critical of yourself with the way that you may have perceived certain things, or, I mean, were you very critical with yourself?
So honestly, when I was young, I was super protective. So I'm like this, like the youngest in my family. I'm like this, like everybody loved me, right? And it was like, everybody loves Reggie, growing up. And so
I wish.
And so, and so this is the thing though. This is why I felt like, I say as an adult, I can say it's an advantage, but it was kind of a disadvantage at first because I had to like revamp myself around like 26, 27 years old because I had such a false confidence. All of that was built up about people telling me who I was. And I never really had to even prove it. Right? They were just like, you the shit, Reg.
Wow.
Oh, you speak so well. You look so nice. And I'm just like, I'm the man. And so I get in these positions and I don't know how to handle myself, or I get into a job interview and I feel less than, and now I'm like, maybe I'm not as good as everybody's saying.
Wow.
So I had to really understand like who you are. Your value isn't wrapped in the applause.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the booze. Right? It's really in you being able to assess, okay, this is what I can and what I can't do, why I'm confident in, how much work I actually put in, right? The steps and that started to allow me to really like assess myself in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been learning like as an adult, like to really do a lot of the things that we've done, a lot of things that aren't bad, they just aren't healthy. And right, so assessing and figuring out who's wrong is cool as long as you're doing it in a healthy way. And I feel like that allowed me to do that.
So usually when people have those reflection moments, that means that they're going through a valley. What valley were you going through in order to start saying, you know what, I'm not who I thought I was?
Explain the valley.
The valley meaning that you hit rock bottom. Something happened to you to say, let me start with me first. Because something's going on. So what was your valley that had you start reflecting on that? On your false confidence?
It was employment.
That's usually where it starts with us for some reason.
I was like, oh my God. How did I
employment because you couldn't find a job, or like you had a job, or it was people that you were connecting with that made you feel kind of less than, like, what was it?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, they asked everybody, what you want to be when you grow up? I remember saying literally, vividly, like 3rd, 4th grade, I'm like, I just want to be remembered. I want to be in the history books. I want to be in there, right? And so I never, ever saw myself working a job. Like, I even as a kid, it just never was a thing. But then again, I had this protected world that made me think like, all right, whatever you want to be, just think about it when you're 21 and do it, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like, that's not the world, right? And so as I got into the real world, I realized like, all right, and to finance your passion and your dreams, you need a job. And so I got caught up in the job circuit, right? Just working. I've worked every single job you can think of, right? And so I had kind of caught this spell of like, all right, I'm working. I was working in school and I came back home. I mentioned before that my brother passed. I got into a really bad car accident. And that's where he passed, right? So I was driving, right? And it really affected me, right? So I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing with my life?
Well, you were driving.
I was driving. He was a passenger. We got into what they call a single car accident, but somebody swerved, whatever happened. The gist of it is that we did like a 5 rollover. Sheesh. Yeah, man. I walked out with no scratch. I had like a bump on my head. You know what I mean? And he passed, right? And so that really put my life into perspective as to like, all right, what are you doing? What are we here for? Like, what's the purpose? Like, you know what I mean? Like my brother. I tell this a lot, was the epitome. He taught me manhood, right? Not shout out to my dad, shout out to my other older brother, but I lived with him in this crucial time where I was a freshman in college to about my senior year, right? And he really taught me like the additional part of responsibility. And so at that crossroad, I was just like, all right, man, I don't want to be wasting time just trying to be a dreamer. I'm just going to get me a job. And so I buckled down and I told myself I'm going to work and save some money. And I just went job to job and it was killing me. I finally moved back home. Years passed. I was still working. And I was just like, oh my God, I thought I was going to like hit a point where like, all right, I worked, I got this bread, now I can go back to the dream chasing.
Right.
Nah. I was like, oh no. I'm more comfortable in the employee seat now. And so now I'm fighting with myself internally. I'm like, okay, well, I have a comfort level with going to work and working for somebody else, but my internal passion is going, yo, this ain't who we are, fam.
Right.
Yeah.
This ain't who we are. Why are you settling for this? And that I don't know, it just led me to a bunch of irresponsible decisions.
So, I mean, because obviously in entrepreneurship, we often hit it's an emotional roller coaster, right?
Yes.
Where you have those moments where you just feel like you're at the top of the world and like everything is just clicking on all cylinders for you. And then you have, like you said, the valleys, of entrepreneurship when you're just like, you know what, F all of this.
Yep.
I need to go back and get a job. So I'm obviously, and we're going to transition and talk about, your transition to entrepreneurship shortly, but do you feel that now still?
Shit, I felt it yesterday. But yeah, that's a real thing, right? Like, but I'm really dedicated to never working for anybody else again.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if we can do partnerships, right? I find out I'm a cultural billionaire. I would like to say that you guys are too, right? And so what we run into oftentimes is capital or financial capital, and we have cultural capital. And so what I've gained now in my small tenure of entrepreneurship is leverage, right?
I was about to ask you about that. How do we leverage that the culture side in order for us to be able to access the financial side?
And I think that's important because that drives me to never going back to work, right? Understanding how to leverage that journey is what keeps me fresh in entrepreneurship because there's always a new opportunity to leverage that in new relationships. My particular field is blossoming with those opportunities because it's not only new opportunities, it's a new industry, right? And so the freshness of that keeps, it's just so many lanes open to being like, all right, I really want to be in this field. I don't do that. I don't have the cultural capital. I need a cultural partner. Right? The same way we go through things and we like, yo, I got the great idea. If I could just find somebody to finance this shit. Ooh, I just need $100K. Right? Somebody's out here looking for $1 million culture. If I just had one black dude that really knew his community, they trusted him, oh man, I could pull this off. What does that matter? Shit, that sounds like it's valuable.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You got $1 million+ and you can do this thing, but you can't do it without me.
Right.
Shit, I need to be getting more than just this is my guy. Right. You know what I mean? And so like understanding that and like working with some of our talent in our community to really understand like how to build out business deals. Right? What those contracts we're talking about? Like what does that look like? How do you do that? Right? And then so we've really we've created a strategy that allows us, and we'll get into it, of how we like leveraging some of the things, the building blocks that we put in place and kind of like our today plan, our tomorrow plan, and then kind of the unexpected stuff that we're going to grow into. But yeah, man, that leveraging that cultural capital is, I think, the key to unlocking the potential in our community.
Right. Go ahead.
Okay. I think another key that you talk about a lot is educate.
Yes.
How big is it for like that? That almost sounds like the cornerstone of your industry right
Yes,
there.
1000%.
Okay, so if you can say 3 things that you really want our community to be educated on when it comes to your industry, what would those top 3 things be?
Wait, before we go there,
Oh.
hold that.
Okay.
Because I want to kind of rewind a little bit.
Okay.
Because I want to know, okay, we talked about you being an employee, you working on these different jobs, but you then made that transition to entrepreneurship. What drove you to this industry in particular?
Perfect. I like both of those. All right. So as I'm hating employment, I find myself working for a Fortune 200 company. You know, these guys make money. I'm going into quarterly meetings. They're like, yeah, we missed the goal. We only did 1.4 billion this quarter. Right? And I'm like, yo, what?
Missed the goal.
Only 1.4.
Only 1.4. We're really down, guys. Come on. I was like, what is going on?
Got to start laying people off.
Yeah, we're killing us, guys. Like, yo, this is crazy. And so that year, that same year, as I'm going through these and I'm moving up the ranks, I'm getting like, raises and promotions. I'm already feeling like I'm never gonna get paid what I deserve. Right? They're never gonna pay me what I deserve. But I'm learning so many skills here too. So I'm like, I really, I got like a free education, second education. So I'm not really mad. But what the breaking point was, that same company gave me too much money in my bonus on mistake. Right? I transferred from one company to another company inside the one rep.
Don't tell me they took that money back, bro.
I feel like that's coming.
I got the extra money, I think 2 months in a row. This might have been August, September, back to back, right?
Mm-hmm.
They bring it up in October. Yo, sorry. Probably paid you like, I don't know, it was like maybe $6,000 or something like that. Not only do we need the money back, we need it back by the end of the year.
Woo.
So I'm like, wait, excuse me,
I gotta go. What's that happening?
They're like, no, it's in the handbook.
Christmas is coming up, man. Get out of here.
It's in the handbook. You gotta. I'm like, yo, I'm not doing that. Like, so now y'all want me to work and give y'all my check because y'all taking the money from me. They like, I got an extra money to be like, all right, we'll take it out of this part. Like, nah, that's my whole check. So I'm like, nah, that's not gonna work. So I wound up having to negotiate to pay them monthly paybacks for like 8 months.
Oh, God.
So at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm done. Forget y'all. But, money is, I need this money, And so shout out to my father. Rest in peace, Pops, man. I love you, man. My first investor, whoever invested into my life, right? Yeah, got like an accident a few years back, got a settlement. He was like, yo, here's $5,000.
Come on.
You know what I mean? I'm like that. Actually, I told him, like, yo, I need some money. I want to just leave my job. I didn't pay my rent. I need to be able to do this. I'm going to take care of it, but I got to be able to leave. All right, here you go, $5K. That's what I got for you. And so that $5K was like, shout out to Pops, man. Shout out to Pops, man. You know what I'm saying? Gave me my first K. I took my little 401k I had to cash out a little bit of that, put those together. And yeah, man, it just took me on a wild journey. Like that's a whole nother story. Talking about like what I actually did once I quit my job. But yeah, that was like the straw that broke the camel back. That was like, all right, that's it. We going into entrepreneurship, and yeah, man, I had a second job at that point. I kept my second job for another month or two. But I quit my job December 2017. And yeah, man, Canna House. Never looked back since, man.
So what got you into the cannabis industry?
And so I've been a consumer since I was 13.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Expert.
You know what I'm saying? So I had this like weird experience. Like the Chronic had just dropped, you know what I mean? The album. Yeah. I didn't even know what weed was. Shout out to my little brother, my god brother Danny, man. We there used to be this tree that grew across the street from my house. And the leaves just look like a maple leaf, kind of like but I'm young, it kind of look like marijuana. I'm like, okay, got the little points on it.
Yeah.
It's gotta be weed. It's a weed tree.
My man
across the street. My man started smoking leaves, bruh. I didn't know what a blunt was, but I knew it looked like a paper bag.
Oh my God.
So I got a paper bag.
He probably got all types of
leaves.
mad,
my
dirty chemicals in him right now.
This is exactly what happens. Like, shout out to TikTok, because at least y'all not smoking leaves. But yeah, man. So that was like my first experience. I was like, oh, that was definitely not weed, right? And we smoked. Yeah, like it was so terrible. We coughed. We like almost threw up. It was so bad. And then like the next over the next month or so, I had ran into some kids. I grew up at Humboldt Park. So across the street was the most famous summer league we had, which is the Randy Smith basketball league. And so all my friends, we all hooped. You know what I mean? So I would go up there in the summertime, we would play, and then, you know, some neighborhood kids would come through. They don't really hoop. They roll dice. They do all the other street shit. And so they was like, yo, that's some weed. And I'm like, oh yeah, I smoke. Y'all couldn't believe what I smoke. And so, yeah, man, that was like, all right, you know what? I like bud, you know, I like it. And as I got, my immature version of it was like just smoking to get high, right? Just smoking to get high. And so over time, I just started to realize, like, I got a passion for this, though, right? I started to get high, but I really started learning as I got older, like, the benefits. I'm like, oh, sure, I mean, my back hurt. I smoke weed. Why can't I smoke weed to make my back feel better, right? Like, you know what I mean? Or what about, is it not smoking? Oh, there's other applications. I could turn it into a topical. I could rub it on my back instead of trying to smoke it and it don't target my particular area, right? And so all those things started to, like, really mature my thought process of, like, the plant. And so, yeah, I just went on this journey of like, hey, man, I want to be an entrepreneur. I tried like 2 or 3 businesses with my friends before this. We had a clothing line. My first real entry into business was I tried to do do you remember me bringing this to you? The e-waste management company, electronic waste management.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, because again, Jamil was so he just was so mature. Like I'm like, yo, bro, like I'm just trying to. I don't even know these terms. He's telling me mad cool shit. I'm just like, oh, yo, bro, I got this idea. And so, yeah, that was my first real thought. Like, all right, I really want to be an entrepreneur. And the business was great. The finance made sense. I had no passion for collecting people's trash. And so I was like, all right, can I do this with something I love? And I was just like, man, one day I was just sitting and I was smoking. And I was like, wait, what do you mean?
It's always the stuff. It's the low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit.
What do you mean you don't know anything you have passion for? Like, what about this? And so it really drove me into like really seeing like, okay, what are other states doing? What did this look like? How did this mature from like this underground thing in California and Colorado to turn into the businesses they have now? And so I started to like watch that track and do some research. Again, education was key. I enrolled into Cannabis Training University. It's an online university, but it really allowed me to, again, taking a turn from my big dog, Dashita Dawson, giving my bro science some real science. And so pairing those things together allowed me to really understand, like, oh, some of these experiences that I have, that I went through and I can kind of articulate, there's a scientific expression for this, you know, and pairing those really started to like mature my journey in cannabis. And naturally it was like, all right, well, we did all we could do from the sideline, bro. You know what I mean? You didn't learn what you could. You can think about these business models, but like unless you plan on getting in and doing this, you're really not gonna be able to answer some of these questions. Right. And so that's kind of what drove me to be like, all right, this is what we jumping out the window with, right? You know what I mean? Electronic waste was cool. You know what I'm saying? The clothing line was cool, but this is something I could do. I can kind of like push myself. I didn't necessarily need a third party. And I feel like those other genres of business, you know, they only allowed me to be myself to an extent, right? This was like, yo, you could put your whole self into this. And I learned how to be an expert on what I did. And that allowed me to walk into ownership, right? Opposed to like, well, how can I go find a job in this, right? And that was the mindset. That was the change. I started to see the potential and like, yo, fuck being somebody's manager for a retail location. You know what I mean? Like, how about you get a retail? How about you get a fleet of retails? You know, how about, and then I was like, well, why retail? You know, there's so many other things. And it really started to like just snowball effect, you know what I mean? The thought process of like what it looked like to be an executive in cannabis.
Yeah. So
Right.
Okay. So a lot of people think when it comes to entrepreneurship, all you need is just passion. But we just talked about how, listen, in entrepreneurship, if you don't want to give up almost once a week, you're not doing it.
Facts.
So
once a week.
Well, I just say once a week.
You're doing really, you must be great.
I just say once a week, but we all know it's like every day. But what else does it take other than passion to really do entrepreneurship?
Man. So it takes will. willpower and passion are two different things. I like to express that your passion is what you love, what you really, you want, you have the desire, but willpower is your drive to push through, to actually do, right? So those two are key. We talked about the third, which is education, right? In any field that you want to be in, you need to be really educated about the whole model of your business, right? You need to be able to understand how to run your business from the start to finish, so you can understand how to properly hire somebody and hold them accountable. And so education is probably the third major pillar. And then fourth is networking. Entrepreneurship does not work without a tribe. You need to find your
social
crew.
capital.
Develop your social capital. We talk about
Develop
that
your
all the
social
time.
capital. That is huge. Without that, more than anything, right? And I think why somebody like Jamil really drives that home is his origin of entrepreneurship, right? Seeing that experience, it is embedded in every part, even in your education. Your education is still networking, right? I'm getting educated by who I'm talking to. Right. And talking to other CEOs from other fields. I'm not talking about just proper school education, right? You can just learn from kicking it. And so that networking aspect is huge in how you can grow, how you get additional resources, because entrepreneurship is one of the key problems you have that I learned that I was doing for a while was I was a solopreneur, not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I wasn't really building out resources or understanding how to
scale as a solopreneur.
Impossible.
Yeah.
That is not a viable solution for scalability. And so, those key components I think make up the foundation for entrepreneurship.
So let me ask you something, because I want to kind of stick on this cannabis thing for a second. I love the conversation that we're having around it, because for so long we know that, especially in communities of color, it was demonized, it was criminalized, and we're starting to see that shift happening right now. Obviously, it started in Colorado. California, kind of jumped on board, and now New York is on board with decriminalization and the legalization of marijuana. This is for the people who are unaware. What are the people? What's being done differently here in New York as opposed to like a Colorado and a California?
That's a great question. The most obvious thing is it's been deemed social equity, right? This term has been thrown around, so I'm not gonna live in that, but that was the spirit of the bill. This bill in New York State is the most comprehensive social equity driven bill passed in American history. Not just in cannabis, not in any field. There's no field that has been, or no legislation that has been drawn up and passed that has been this dedicated to seeing people who have been affected negatively by the war on drugs win. That's the spirit. And so big shout out to the majority leader, Crystal Peoples-Stokes.
Shout out to Crystal.
Big shout out
That's
to the
family right there.
You know what I'm saying? To the godmother. But Crystal, her dedication to seeing that this bill didn't get passed without really understanding how to impact and undo some of the harm that was done from the war on drugs, it really makes this bill the shining star of legislation in cannabis. Outside of that, and let me explain that, right? So how that was articulated in law was that it has been written that 50% of the licenses, of all licenses in New York State, are to be held by social equity applicants. Now, because law doesn't allow you to specify that by saying Black people, right? You got to group a couple other groups in there. So, and this is some of the stuff that I learned in my journey to entrepreneurship in this field was advocacy and legislation and how things are written, how regs roll out, and some of the give and take that you got to have. So Crystal held hard for a lot of the points that she has in the bill, but some of the stuff she had to give up was like, all right, we can't just say Black people get 50% of the licenses. So it was like people that was harmed most by the war on drugs, that's us, right? Communities most harmed, but it was distressed farmers, right? War veterans and women, right? Okay. So these groups are also considered social equity. So I do appreciate that, it is an inclusive category. Yeah. And that does help I would have loved to see that was for us. But again, you got to understand kind of some of the, again, give and take. But yeah, that is probably the most standout, I say, factor of the bill that really separates it from anything that's like this in the country, for sure.
That's super dope. So let's talk a little bit about, Canna House. Because like you created this incredible brand.
Thank you.
Here with Canna House. Talk to us a little bit about Canna House because, a lot of people know it as like, it's a social club, right? So just go into detail about it. And is the plan to keep it a social club or is it to expand further than just that?
Yeah. So, our origin, so my original was delivery service, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm about to do, it was Canna Port. Right, babe? Canna Port was the first business. And I was like, this is going to be fire. You know what I'm saying?
We all do when we first start
can't
something.
stop me.
I'm about like weed and Newports.
It was transport in Canna. It was like transporting the cannabis. So Canna Port, it made more sense in my head. You know what I'm saying?
Sound like cigarettes to me.
So, in my thought process, I was like, I could do this, right? And I went to Crystal. And this is why our relationship works so well, and why we are probably tied in so deeply is because I was one of the first people to ever come to her office as a Black person and talk about being a legal cannabis owner, and she was like, "Yes, where y'all been?" So I told her what I wanted to do, and she was like, "All right, well, that's not a bad idea, but you need to understand who can touch the plant in that way." I was like, what? What you mean? You know what I mean? So I'll go into detail, right? Registered organizations are the folks who have the licenses and run our medical dispensaries here, right? And back then in 2016, they were the folks who could do everything seed to sale, right? If you wanted to touch the plant, you could deliver it, you could grow it, you could process it, but it all had to be done by the same company. You had to be vertically integrated, right? And so in that, I was like, well, I'm gonna do delivery. I'm gonna just go to these retail locations. Y'all don't got delivery, right? Let me just take this over for y'all. It's simple, right? And so I quickly found out that was impossible, right? The law wouldn't allow it. I was like, oh shit, so I gotta transition. You know what I mean? So I transitioned into, okay, I think we can gather folks together. Like I know from a youngin' growing up, my mom threw these cool parties at the crib. I can do that, I can do that, right? You know what I'm saying? So, but how does that look legally? How do I protect people? And so originally, we started doing like events. It was like, all right, we could do events. Let's start with just inviting people to events. And when we invite them, let's try to get people signed up to be medical card holders, right? And if we could do that, then if the cops kick the door in, we're just patients, right? All enjoying our medicine together, right? And we paying, like, mind your business, sir. Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? So in that process, like, all right, well, we got to safeguard our members. And so we came up with like a membership process and how to become a member. And then we would always encourage you to sign up and get a medical card. And so that developed into like, okay, we were doing events. And so we're a social club. And like we were partnering with regional and local locations that would house us. All right, we want to do puffin paints and we want to do murder mysteries and we want to do cooking with cannabis. Like what locations can actually help us facilitate this stuff? And so shout out to the community. Oh man, I got so many folks. Shout out to Kat over there at Empty Cup. Empty Cup. You know what I mean? One of our first believers.
Everybody know Kat.
Shout out to Kat. It's a bunch of places. I won't get into detail, but shout out to everybody that really looked out for us in those early days because it really get us to understand like what we wanted to do. But then from there, we really started to see like, okay, we got value though, past getting everybody together, have a good time and party. And so then it became, well, what's the responsibility if you have the ability to gather all these people under the guise of cannabis, right? Are you just minimizing really the impact? And so it was like, all right, so now we've matured into like really understanding we want to add value to the consumer's life, right? If that's advocacy, that's education, if that's product awareness, and that's creating dope spaces, right? And so that's what we've evolved into is really this, I'll say we're an entity. I mean, we are a club essentially by definition, but as an entity, we really want to embody this upward motion of our community, and our vehicle is cannabis, right? And so we want to make sure that people are smarter about cannabis. We want to make sure that we are educated not just about how to invest, but how to consume and use, or just how to interact with somebody in your family that has this and is using this. And we kind of like reverse some of those, stigmas. I'm about to say stigmatization. I'm about to make that really a long word for no reason. Like some of those stigmas, and that's kind of like the origin of like what we are, and what we want to do is essentially fill this void across the country, really globally. Right. So our thing is this: what we're trying to do here is not just something that Buffalo needs. Every community needs this, especially communities of color, where they can go to a safe space that's a resource center. I want to tap in and be like, yo, Reg, could you tell me where so-and-so is? Hey, I'm looking for the best. And, I can't find her. Right? We want you to be able to come to us and we'd be able to be a platform for some of our brands, NWE or just Black-owned brands in general that can come to us and be like, yo, man, I need to get exposed to the consumer audience, right? I got this brand, I got this product, I don't know how to get in front of them. So now we can say, hey, I don't have that brand, but I have the audience.
Right.
So, hey, audience meet brand. And so now we have a additional value add to the community outside of just being a resource center for those who just want knowledge, but now those who want to get active and do something. We can start to connect those dots for you. And so that's kind of like our overall mission. We really, really want to help the kids as well. We think there's a missing element to educating youth and getting them aware and ready to, encounter cannabis in the community and when they go out into the public. We talked about this before, Jamil, about, first time you ever run into cannabis is like on the street. Like
Absolutely.
I said, my people's in the park was like, yo, you want to smoke?
Yep.
So now I got to make this decision on right there, in front of everybody. I don't want to not be cool. So I'm going with it, right? And, if I had some at least understanding before I got in that situation, how more prepared could I be?
Right.
Not that I feel like I made a bad decision, but looking back though, I started really early. How did it affect my brain development? Where was I set back? And because that information really wasn't readily available then, we didn't have the knowledge. But now it's becoming more available, and we want to make sure that we're ushering that into the community. So,
Yo, it's super dope what you're saying. And, we were having this conversation earlier, especially around that education piece with young people.
Word.
Because oftentimes, especially in communities of color, again, we talk about that demonization and the criminalization of marijuana, and we need a whole paradigm shift in the thought process with that, because right now you're seeing a whole bunch of other people making a lot of money off of the stuff that put us in prisons and really just completely destroyed our communities, right? So
tore us apart.
So, but I think it starts with those young people though, right? Because a lot of them, like you said, they're consumers.
They're consumers.
Let's just keep it a stack. You know what I'm saying? They're out here, they're consuming right now. And if they know, if there are paths for them to do this thing the right way, to be able to make a lot of money from it as well, I think it can completely just start to change and shift how our communities are looked at and how we operate and do business in our communities as well.
That's a fact. I mean, I think this is our opportunity for liberation. To change our social economic status in this country, right? To go from being treated the way that we're treated, right? And begging and demanding these things to just be treated fairly, right? And that's because we live in a capitalistic country and we don't really have any of the financial capital representation to really demand a seat at the table, right? And so this is what this opportunity gives us. And yes, I think the youth are so important to that cause, because they're going to be, what we do now is just the foundation for what we're laying for them, right? I hope that because I exist, it's easier for a Black kid to go get financing, for a bank to let him in, right? For the community to appreciate what he's doing, right? And so that's my duty as a first through the door, entrepreneur in this arena. But I also think there's a responsibility, and this is something that I talk about sometimes, but I really, really want the Black church to be involved. Black church has so much hold on our community. You know what I mean? And in truth, I think it owes our community this, right? It was just as...
We got to clip this part right
now. My bad.
We got to clip this part.
They're so culpable in even some of the demonization that we talk about, right?
Sure.
So, you got to pay that back. You know what I mean? We asking for the state to give us 50% representation on license, and what is the church giving back, right? And I grew up in the church. My mom's an elder. My grandmother's a mother of the church.
You already know what's coming.
You know what I'm saying? So like I grew up in the church, and so I feel like I'm qualified to talk like this.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not an outsider, right? And so when I say this, I'm saying it as a plea of love. Hey, we need this. You know what I mean? Think about it. In the Black community, where can you count on Black people showing up every single week outside of your job?
Yeah, that's a fact.
Come on, man. And it's just us?
Y'all hear this?
Come on, man.
Bishops.
Hey,
pastors.
I'll come holler at y'all bishops. We can have a real, productive conversations about it.
Let's have a conversation about this.
And shout out to some of the bishops that I've talked to. Shout out to Bishop Gillison from Mount Olive. We had some productive conversations. Shout out to Bishop Bronner from Elam Christian Fellowship.
Okay.
Right. So this isn't like I'm just throwing shots from outside. Like we've dabbled in this, and I'm really just putting some additional conversation to our previous thoughts. But yeah, I think the Black church has a huge opportunity to not only just educate and open it up for like, this is a safe space for us to talk about it. But I think I think every Black church should own a dispensary. If you ask me, right? I think Black churches should be in the game from the medical benefits, right? Because your congregation is older. You know what I mean? They the ones that need it.
And they consumers too.
And they consumers. And let's be clear. Let's be clear. They consuming.
Yes.
They're consuming. and so you just need to be a part of that. I just feel like the church is on the outside looking in as it relates to cannabis. And there is
I feel like that needs to be a whole nother podcast.
It really is, though.
Man.
Really, and I say that to say yes, when we're talking about like how we can really start to create a new norm for ourselves. Think about how much what we feel is normal in our life has been at the origin of church, right? From praying, how you go to sleep, how you wake up, how you deal with your stress, right? When it's you stress out, you need to pray. Right, that is built into us. So it has that kind of power to affect us in our changing of our normalcy. Go, please.
Okay, I have a question though, because when we talk about the youth really being that movement and that generation that's really going to change this for us, I don't know if a lot of youth is in the church.
Correct.
So it's like, yeah, we could hit up our churches, and we're hitting a lot of the older generations, the one that we're going to have to fight against. But do you feel like that's just to change their mindset, because we're not really hitting the youth as much? Yeah, so
that's a really good point. But those youth interact with those older folks.
That's it.
Okay.
In some way.
The older folks are the ones that's going to set the example.
Exactly.
They're going to set the example.
Exactly. And it's just like even in church, how you went to church. Like, I only went to church because my parents grew me up in that, right? And so it's just like, all right. And it's not to say we do youth or we do church.
Right.
It's an and thing.
Yeah.
And so I think the mission and how you reach both of those crowds has to be cross intersection. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I think that's how we kind of do that.
Yeah, that's dope, bro. So we're going to be wrapping up soon. But before we do, man, we talked about this earlier. You talk about breaking ground. My man is out here breaking barriers for real. Man. Shout out to Buffalo Business First.
Big
man.
shout out to Kay Anderson.
I don't like to be shouting out other media unless I'm getting a check. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna shout out Buffalo Business First, right? Because they did something groundbreaking recently. We see it on the television. My man, he was featured on the cover.
Yes.
A Buffalo Business First.
He was.
Thank
it was
you.
amazing. And it was so dope because, and I hit him up afterwards too. And I was just like, yo, you know they about to go crazy, bro. The streets about to go crazy right now about this, because not only, you have a black man with dreads. He got a blunt in his hand on the cover.
That's a fact.
On the cover of Buffalo Business First.
And they put that right.
And they put it right on the cover. And I love the audaciousness of that, because I think it's needed. It's needed for the conversations, for that narrative to start to change. And again, shout out to Business First for doing that and recognizing that someone like you, who's a pioneer in this space. Yeah. Right? So kind of talk to that. Talk to what was that feeling like being on the cover of Business First, bro?
Yeah, that was that's one of those moments, right? That's one of those and I don't know if I'm so head down in the mission sometimes that I don't really get a chance to like
come up
and appreciate some of that stuff. So I thank them for even allowing that for me, but even bigger for the impact that you're talking about. You know, when I first was approached about it, I just thought it was a story. You know what I mean? I was just like, all right, you know, I've seen some Buffalo Business First stories like kind of cover this industry, right? And I was like, all right, cool. I'm down to have a conversation. And then when, you know, Kate reached out and she was just like, yo, like, you know, I think this is, originally we sat down, we did it. Now she was like, yo, you gave me so much information. Hold on. I'm going to go back to the state. Let's talk. I'm going to talk to them because I don't, if they know about all of this, because it was originally, she was just like, well, how you plan on getting in the industry? I was like, wait, like, there's no path for me, right? I'm making a path. I've done some stuff, but like, let me be clear. Like, the state didn't do me a bunch of favors. Right. And she was like, wait, that's the element, that's the spirit of thing. I was like, oh yeah, people don't know. We need to talk about this. And I really applaud her for really taking it serious and not trying to just get a story that she could say, hey, I wrote about cannabis. Right. You know what I mean? And really taking interest in a perspective that was really not talked about enough and just didn't get enough coverage. And so for me, you know, I didn't know I had to cover until it came out. Wow, really? So she sent me a picture of like of me on the cover, and I was like,
and yeah, honestly, I had to do a double take myself because like I'm like, wait. Is this the cover? I'm looking like, is this a section?
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? I'm like, damn. I'm like, no, this is the cover.
Word.
This is the cover.
Word. I'm like, yo, this is a big picture for me to be on like page 6.
Right.
Like, I don't know how they're doing this, but that's dope. Then I looked and I was like, cover story. I was like, oh shit. Shit. And so originally I was just like, I'm excited. And I mean, internally I'm telling my friends and I send it to my mother and to my fiance. And I'm just like, yo, to the team, like, yo, we made it, y'all. It's lit, it's dope. And then it dropped, and then the public started to like give me their feedback. And like again, my brother hitting me and like, yo, hey, dog. I'm just like, I knew, but I didn't know. And then it really started to really sink in, like, no, what we're doing is to your point, that's how we leverage that capital, right? Is being able to get into these spaces and cross over these worlds and legitimize ourselves in spaces where, you know, people are respecting, again, somebody who just looked like me. I truly feel like an article like that, what it does is it says, hey, I need to be looking for a dark-skinned dude with dreads to run my cannabis company. If we ain't got that, we really ain't got nothing, for real. And so that, I felt like it gave us that. For the culture, for the more than it is for me, man. Like I kind of grew up in this like, yo, Reg, you the shit. You know what I mean? So like applause is dope. I put them in perspective now. But I've kind of been used to like, yo, go Reg. Now I'm just like, nah. What this is doing for the folks that are about that look like me, that will never get this cover, right? What it does, that legitimacy, you can't buy that. You can't buy that. And we didn't go searching for that. Right. That article came of us. You know what I'm saying? That it just validated so much of the work we were doing and our approach to things. And it just is it was truly like a full circle moment as it relates to like, yo, I remember when I was out here trying to like just tell people what I was doing. And now there's like people going like, hey, I need you to tell people what you're doing. And it just feels great. It really does. It's an amazing feeling. And I'm thankful for all the support that came with that, man. And all the support that it will generate. You know, I got a bunch of business offerings and deals that are like, yo, man, we want to tap in with you. And keep sending them. You know, keep hitting the DMs, keep calling me, texting me. I'm open to all of those conversations. It doesn't mean that, you know, we always going to land on something that you might have preordained when you call, but I assure you I'm open to all of these conversations. And really, it's really about trying my best to help anybody that looks like me. No offense to the allies, but if you look like me, you come from my community. That's first priority. That's my first priority. Absolutely. Tap in.
I love the fact that you are deemed the expert in this field.
So crazy.
You are.
So crazy.
Yeah. And
blows my mind, bro.
I mean, you've been consuming for so long.
bro. I mean, just everything, but also, Reggie, I salute you for being the one.
Thank you.
You are the one we've been waiting for. And also for creating a legacy as well, because when you talk about paving the path for something that hasn't been done, that's legacy being created. And it's not just for your family, but it's for our community family, you know, the community that we have. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you putting your head down, and every day when you wanted to quit, you don't.
That's a fact. It's more work to do. It's more stopping myself from quitting, but you know what I mean? Nah, that's what it's about. It's about just that. Making a way, creating a legacy, making sure that our last name could be, you know what I mean, thought of in that way, right? We never thought about like what your last name represents for your family. And I would love 50, 60 years from now, people to go, man, the Keiths, you know what I mean? They set the standard for cannabis in this state and in this country and globally. And so that's the goal. That's the goal.
So if you allow me, I'm gonna do something fun with you now,
Okay.
Reggie, okay?
All right.
So I'm gonna have some options for you.
Okay.
And I want you to choose one or the other.
Okay.
Okay? Ooh, I think I forgot the name already.
Listen, shout out to his queen too.
Absolutely.
Shout out to my...
You got the queen in here.
Nah, shout out, baby.
Yo, you
Shout out
guys
to Queen.
gotta see her hair. Her hair is like...
Yeah, Nas is popping. You know, I mean, they are popping duo together. You know, I love the two of them together.
For real.
Absolutely.
Okay, Backwood. Ooh, Backwood or Duchess?
Oh, it's not even close. Backwood. Not even close.
Okay,
actually, Backwood. She apologizes for putting you in the same sentence with Dutch. Sorry, Dutch Master. Sorry.
Okay, blue cheese or ranch?
Blue cheese. I'm from Buffalo.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Yo, come on, stop it.
Nasty
ranch. Ew.
Okay, sugar and grits or salt and pepper? Uh-oh. Look at you.
Bro, I feel like you putting me mad pressure right now, man. You want to wink me the answer? I feel like you want to tell me what answer to go with, bro. Damn. I'm not a sugar and grits guy. I'm a salt, pepper.
Cut.
I didn't warm my welcome out, man. I'm sorry. I do like sugar and rice, though.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I love sugar and rice. I got you sugar and rice.
All right.
We still family. I'm still in the family.
Okay.
You redeemed yourself.
The last one. Claire Huxtable.
Ooh.
Or
Claire Huxtable. No, I'm sorry. What's my order?
Claire Huxtable or the original Vivian Banks.
I gotta go Claire.
Yeah, it's
I
not
gotta go Claire
It's not
Huxtable.
even
Claire
close.
Huxtable. It's not. It really ain't close. It's really not close.
Ooh.
I mean, it's Claire Huxtable. Like, have you seen the Cosby
Yeah.
Show? Like, what?
She's still cold. She's like
Right
70
now.
years old.
Right now.
She's
She's still cold.
74.
Yes,
Can't
it's
believe
cold.
her.
It's cold, icy.
Man. Okay.
Hey, Felicia.
So
Sorry, babe. Sorry.
so just for our audience who don't know, because I don't know, what's the difference between Backwood and Duchess? What's that?
All right, so they're both like cigars, right? So they both are like leaves with tobacco inside. Dutch Master is more like it's not like a natural leaf. It has like a natural leaf to it, but it's a different texture. I put it like that. It has kind of like an inner lining, like a cancer paper, which that has its own research to tell you like it's good or it's not bad. Some people take it out, some people don't. I'll pass on it. I will say this though. They're both tobacco-based products, and you know, if I can encourage anybody to start with like a raw paper. Start with a paper. You know, I'm addicted to the price of the tobacco, the little bit of tobacco that you still get when you put your weed inside that tobacco roll up. So I'm you know, again, I'm an OG though. I've been smoking paper bags. You feel me? So like, you know, I came up off the chemical reaction of the light up. So I'm kind of preordained to like thinking about like what tastes better. But no, backwoods are a better roll up. They're a little stronger. You can put more in it. It's just a better smoking experience, honestly.
Okay.
You know what I mean? For sure.
All right.
For sure.
So where can people find you? Reggie?
Oh, all right. So me personally, I'm at Reggie_no_Reggie. So Reggie, no Reggie on IG. You know what I'm saying? I'm the only Reggie allowed in the circle. We don't smoke. No Reggies around here. You know what I mean? And then the club is the second _house. So THE, the number 2, the letter ND, then _house, the second _house on IG, and then Canna House on Facebook, canna-house.com is the website. Membership is free right now, still free. You can sign up. We're going to go to a paid model soon enough.
I better get in quick.
So get in so we can grandfather y'all in and we don't have to hit y'all. You know
I don't even smoke. I just might get in.
Just get in. Pull up. Yes. And it's about that. Honestly, I'm glad you brought that up. It really is about consumers and non-consumers alike because there's still some exclusivity that you want to be a part of, even though you might not consume, right? And there's still some education that we can provide for you. We still want to give you, product awareness. We still want to give you dope spaces to be a part of, whether you consuming with us or not. And then maybe we can convince you to come on over.
And you know what? It's funny, and then we're going to wrap up, but, I was thinking about that as we were having a conversation today because I'm not a smoker, but I can appreciate, people like yourself who, one, you're educated on this stuff. And again, I think there's so many misperceptions and misconceptions about cannabis and weed and things like that. I personally don't believe it's a gateway drug like a lot of people.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So, but it's still more for me to learn. So I think I'm gonna take you up on that and join in.
I appreciate that, man. That's a good point, man. So many people like yourself is like, all right, say I'm on the fence. And I want to know, where do I even go for that? You know what I'm saying? I could talk to my man, but he's just going to convince me because he's been trying to get me to smoke with him for 10 years, right? And so, I want to talk to somebody that can really give me some game, some intro-level products, because there's some entry-level products. You should not be smoking what I'm smoking, bro.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You should not come right over and try to jump into the deep end. You know what I mean?
I'll be like Chris Tucker on Friday.
In the chicken coop.
Yeah, chicken coop.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I don't need that on my conscience, bro. I don't need that. You know what I mean? So there's some...
You held accountable.
That's a fact. Nah, I'm like, what was my role in that? You know what I'm saying? But man, that's a big part. We really want to invite the whole community to be a part of the club so that we can really elevate our community's knowledge. And so that makes it easier for us to start to incorporate, whether it's business or normal practices into our community. The person next door isn't like, what is going on? They're like, well, whether I'm in it or not, I know. Yeah. Reggie and them told me what's going on. That's why it's construction happening here for the next 6 months. Oh, I know this company. This is their hiring practices. They come in here like that. And what we didn't really get into, which is a really important part, is this allows us to really start to demand what we want from companies coming into our community.
Yes.
Right? We have been the leading consumer, since consumership started really in America, right? And we've really been able to get money. And we don't have any control about how people come in and demand our dollar.
Right.
This allows us to go, you know what? All right, listen, man, you want us to come buy your weed? Cool. This is what I need back.
Right.
Or nobody in this zip code is coming to buy your weed. You're gonna have to get people to come from wherever to come get your shit. Right? And that kind of control, that kind of demand, that kind of power really starts to, again, create norms that we want because it is not just dependent on what we can generate from our pocket, but we demanded somebody who already got it in their pocket to do it in our community based on what they want from us. So yeah, man, there's so much.
Brother, we thank you, man. We
appreciate y'all, man. Thank y'all so much.
This has been a dope conversation. You're welcome back to the pod anytime, man.
Yes,
we're definitely gonna have to have you back again at some point, man, because I want to keep this conversation going around this education piece, changing that narrative around marijuana and such, because we have to take advantage.
Yes.
We have to take advantage of these opportunities that's coming in, So, and I think you're at the forefront of that, man. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, guys. Yes, thank you so much. We got some programs I can't wait to come back and talk about. So next year would be a great opportunity for us to start talking more about that.
Awesome.
Man.
Yeah,
so
man.
Appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. Make sure that y'all check us out on all of the streaming platforms, wherever you listen to your podcast. We are there. Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff. We just really appreciate y'all. I'm Jamil.
I'm Avi.
We out, y'all.
Thanks for checking out another episode of We Are The Ones podcast.
Make sure you subscribe and listen to our podcast on any of your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and even on Audible.
And then make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram at We Are The Ones podcast. And make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and share. Because remember, you are not just the one. We are the ones.